so much for coming. I really
Right.
appreciate the fact that you even accepted my invite, buddy. You
Not
didn't
at
have
all. Not at
to
all.
accept it, so it's a honor to have you on this podcast.
Not at
You're
all.
someone
Definitely.
you're someone I've really had a lot of respect for sure. Because I still remember back in the days when your Shape of You Carnatic mix came up.
Right.
You have no idea the number of times I must have heard it back and forth again and again and again. And I think I loved it so much that I even ripped the MP3 out of the YouTube thing and then put it on my iPod back in the days. So it
Man,
was
man.
good. I absolutely loved it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Sandra. That means a lot because, for independent musicians like myself and so many others in my generation, um, getting an opportunity to, you know, put rather make ourselves vulnerable and put our music out there.
Mm,
It's an experiment. Every individual song or track or cover that you put is an experiment, right?
mm,
So it's constantly people making themselves vulnerable. I think that's true for every artist, right? But then when you see that kind of acceptance from people from all different backgrounds, right, who are music enthusiasts, who are musicians themselves, and other kinds of fans like yourself. I don't know about your background in music, right? But for someone like you who is so much into tech and for you to enjoy that kind of music, it really um, sort of inspires us to do. I don't know. There's a recent movie in which I think I noticed a dialogue from Kamal Hassan.
mm.
I don't remember. I think it must have been Uttama Villain or something. In that, there is a scene where he's being interviewed on a reality show or something,
Yeah, yeah,
and he says something. I don't remember the exact dialogue, so I can't quote him. He
yeah,
says something to the extent of, "It's only the appreciation that makes the artist want to perform or think about creating more art
yeah,
forms,"
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Makes a lot of sense.
every word of appreciation is the very reason an artist is making. One of the reasons I would say
Mm.
is definitely to hear what the audience has to say. Right? I'm sure it's true for every. Kamal Hassan itself has said that. So obviously, it's true for
For sure.
inspiring artists. Rather aspiring artists like myself and people who are at different levels of success and I would say even failure.
Sure, dude. I mean, you're doing a great job, man. Because uh, another reason why I absolutely love that track is uh, my grandma used to
Mhm.
be a Carnatic music teacher back in
Oh,
the
okay.
days. She was very popular in Bangalore. I'm originally from Bangalore,
I see.
and but I regret that I did not learn music from her, and it was probably too late by the time I could have learned.
Hmm.
And since then, in Tamil, there's something called Kelvi Jnanam,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And because I've always grown up listening to Party singing all the ragas, and she
Right.
used to teach music on the terrace where she would have like 10 students sitting in front of her, and she'll be sitting with the tambura and teaching.
Yes.
It was such a great thing to see, but I regret I didn't do it. So I have this Kelvi Jnanam, and I'm a massive crazy guy for Carnatic music. Is there if there's any Carnatic element in any song,
Right.
I'm number one fan.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, especially your Shape of You that blew me away.
Thank you. I will take credit for that along with my other collaborators who worked on that song with me. So it was definitely truly a collaboration in all its spirit, in
Yeah,
all senses. So
yeah,
it was quite challenging and actually very rewarding to work with musicians like that. They also challenge you creatively, right? So then it's like
mm,
there is an element of healthy competition. You're constantly trying to impress them so that that
yeah,
always happens. However established or how much of expertise you have, there's
yeah,
always that bit of, okay, did I impress them? Are they at least happy with my work? That question always comes when it comes to collaborations. I guess that's one of the reasons why many people don't collaborate with other artists that
yeah,
much, right? This
yeah.
constant fear of what if I'm
True,
being judged.
true.
So yeah, that was a fun track for all of us. We didn't expect that it would turn out to be, it'll have so much acceptance with multiple audiences. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think
And it has like 8.8 million views or something. I was having a look yesterday, isn't it? Am I right?
yeah, around that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
keep going back to it every couple of weeks to see, more than the views, it's the engagement that matters for me,
correct, correct.
right? What are people saying in the comments?
Yeah,
Um, for the bulk of it, people are like, oh, this is so cool and all of that. But
Yeah.
occasionally you'll find one or two comments from people who really know what they're talking about.
Correct.
So it'll almost end up being like, this is oh, here's my critique of this work. I'm like, okay, so people are also viewing it like this.
Yeah.
So, but not just that, even the other experiments that I've done, the other videos that I've done,
Mm.
there is always a group of people who are like, you can call them, uh, I don't want to use the word Veritanamana fans, but I'll just say like regular fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll always have another category of viewers who will come and critique your work, not
Mm.
because they want to find fault with it, but
Yeah.
they're kind of like your quality control.
Mm.
They're like,
Mm.
last time you did this, but this time why are you doing this, right? So then it's like, so the next time you think about a production, you're like, okay, this person said that person said this. Like, how am I going to, make something that? And there's always the other thing of you can't please everybody, right? So then it's as a musician, I'm thinking, okay, I did something like Shape of You, then I did so many other experiments. I've
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
கொஞ்சம் I've done a little bit like commercial, like Kale Porudil and the Madri, like no videos that appeal to a larger audience.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, okay, what next? So
Yeah.
it's always the first thing is you want to challenge yourself, saying, okay, I should have the next project I do should be totally either different or it should be like several notches higher than the last one that I did. So
So, what memories does it bring back when you go back and look at such an amazing work that you have done, like Shape of You?
um,
I'm
memories,
just curious. That's all.
right? Of course, memories. Obviously, the complete lack of expectations,
Mm.
right? Because we knew that enough, a lot of people, there was quite a few people who got offended by that work
Oh,
because for obvious reasons, because they're like, oh, you've sort of contaminated Carnatic music. And I get where they're coming from, right?
mm.
I grew up in a Carnatic household. My music genes come from my mother, and I've been trained formally by
Mm.
such stalwarts of Carnatic music, right? So I've been through extensive amounts of
Yeah.
training and being, I wouldn't say gurukulam, but
Mm.
being under the guidance of
Mm.
a music teacher for a very long time. And
Mm.
in especially with Carnatic music or even Hindustani music, there's this concept of pin part. You're
Mm.
literally sitting behind your
Of
teacher and
course.
singing, right? So having done that for several years, and so I know where they're coming from because
Yeah.
they're,
Yeah.
and some people are genuinely concerned about, oh, this is contamination of the purest of art forms. Whereas a few others are like, okay, this is nice and cool, but then I don't understand what you're singing, right? So the various levels of feedback, right? But for us, like we just did it with absolute lack of expectation. We're like, this is an experiment.
Yeah.
It's a hit or a miss.
Yeah.
That much we knew because we love the track,
Yeah.
right? So then it's a question of this is going to be a hit or a miss. If it's a miss, it's going to be a miserable miss. If
Mm.
it's a hit, it's going to be a runaway hit. So
Mm.
only that much we decided. But then we didn't know, okay, it's going to get so much acceptance and people are going to like it to this extent. And I think what really blew it apart was dancers started to take that and do choreography to it.
Oh, wow.
We had the Mohan sister, Shakti Mohan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, they did a cover version,
Oh, wow.
and I think they have more views than us or something like that. So, and they are very popular, right, throughout India and even abroad too, because they fantastic dancers, first of all,
Yeah.
and they became judges on one of the dance reality shows,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they're part of the circuit with uh, most of the top choreographers and with Prabhu Deva and all of that. So they get associated with all those big
Yeah.
names, right?
Yeah.
So when
Oh,
they choreographed for this version, people went like, "Whoa, what is this track? Like, who did this stuff?" And then because of that, we got a lot of traction. So there were
right.
various dance groups. They
Right.
saw the Mohan sisters do it, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll also do our version." And then suddenly, before we knew it, we were clocking 1 million views per day.
Wow.
That
Wow.
lasted for about 3 4 days or so.
Wow.
Then the media picked it up. So that's when things got interesting, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, it was quite a whirlwind. After the second day, I'm like, okay, I just don't know what to do. I didn't have an artist page. I wasn't active on Facebook. I didn't know how to operate on Instagram because
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's teenage stuff. I don't want to do it. Right now, I'm like hooked to Instagram and I don't, I'm more on that because Facebook is becoming less and less cool. you have your fathers, uncles, and aunts and grandfathers, everybody on Facebook. So it's no longer cool, right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying because I have nothing against them using it, but my target audience is all on Instagram
I
now,
agree. I agree.
right?
Yeah.
So then, if you want the audience, you go where they are, right? So it's come to that. So yeah. So complete lack of expectation there. Like we
Right.
didn't plan for this. We just knew it's going to be one of these two
Mm,
extremes.
mm,
And we didn't plan for this piece. We didn't think about it and say, okay, we must pick Shape of You because it's,
yeah.
we didn't do that much of what
Right.
do you say, an introspection, right?
Yeah.
Because it was more like the four of us got on a call. Four meaning there is also the
Mm,
person named Sriram Emani, who is the CEO
mm,
of Indian Raga, and of
mm.
course Aditya and Mahesh. So it was just like one Google Hangout, and we are like, "Arey, what shall we do? What song shall we do?" I think Aditya was like, he was moving out of his apartment or something. He was just cleaning up and he was like, hey, I've heard this new song called Shape of You. Until then, I had no clue who was Ed Sheeran. I had no clue what Shape of You was. I'm like, okay, let me go listen to that song. So I spent one full day hearing that song, doing
Ah,
nothing else,
wow.
just hearing that song. Because I don't know if this is one kind of habit like musicians have.
Mm,
Maybe
mm.
some of them do. If I like a particular song, I hear it for like some 300 times. I
Yeah.
totally exhaust myself. It's like
Oh,
that really interesting story that are you a Rajini fan?
no.
No. Ah.
Well, I mean, I do watch his movies, but not like a crazy fan, no.
Okay, fine. Then I could have quoted one of his movies.
But go
Uh,
for it. Yeah, I
yeah,
would.
I think it's Arunachalam, where he
Yeah,
tells a story to his son, where he
yeah.
says his father caught him smoking and he locked him up in a room full of
Mm,
BD, and he said you have to finish all of this the overnight. And he explains how overnight he finishes a room full of BD and then he never touched me. For me, the songs are like that. I'll pick one song, I'll get intoxicated by a song. I'll listen to it like 300 times, and then I'll forget about the song for the next 6 months.
oh, wow.
So the song just gets stuck to me because then I remember every aspect of the song. I know what the bass guitar played, I know what the drums played. I can
Wow.
recreate the entire sequence. It happens only with certain songs, not with all of them. Right. So
Yeah,
that's what I did with Shape of You. I spent just 24 hours listening to the song. I'm like, I know every single track that's playing,
yeah.
except of course Ed Sheeran's voice, right?
Mm, mm.
So then I'm like, I can just recreate the whole thing. So we made our own sort of loop.
Right.
And I started singing like Carnatic equivalents of the Swaram.
Yeah,
You cannot exactly translate. You have to make it
yeah.
adaptable to
Correct.
the
Correct.
the nuances and sensitivities of Carnatic music,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
then it has to be a mixture of which is jati, which is tom ta na 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 na, அது use பண்ணணும். But at
Yeah.
the same time, you also have to use Swaram.
Mm, mm,
So it
mm.
has to be an aesthetic combination, and there is no formula. After a certain point, it becomes trial and error, right?
Mm.
So I feel a lot of musicians these days, the music reflects a more freestyle kind of. I'm just flowing with the theme kind of an attitude in the music. Even with Rahman sir's music, a
Mm.
lot of it does. It won't sound structured after a while,
Yeah,
and because we've seen structured music for such a long time, right from MSV sir, right from Ilayaraja sir,
yeah,
everything was structured.
yeah,
You
yeah,
could literally write down notes and get an entire orchestra to reproduce it. So
yeah.
I'm not saying Rahman sir's music is exactly opposite. There are some of his songs that are very predictable, right? You find them performing live and all of that, right?
Yeah,
But there are
yeah.
certain songs where certain sections will be absolutely freestyle. Like
Mm.
you're like, this is so random, like you could have filled it up with anything else and it would have still been a hit,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it is those sort of things that sort of attract me, right? So I look out for those aspects of music, not just in Rahman sir's music, but others also. Like what are they doing?
Yeah.
You don't find that with English pop music.
Mm,
It's all
mm,
too structured. It's like
mm,
manufactured, kind of a feeling. Which is why I tend to come back to Indian music, and which
mm.
is why I tend to come back to Rahman sir's music because that element of freestyle is there so much.
Yeah, true.
It's even more there in his last 10 years or so compared to if you look back to maybe Jeans or Kadalan,
Mm,
that element was not there.
mm,
It's only
mm.
more recently you'll start observing it from Delhi 6. You'll observe it in what is that? The
Maybe
Amir Khan movie here. What is that? Ayyo, Rang De Basanti.
Rate Basanti. Yeah,
Right? So you'll see a lot of those things. And some of the like rap songs that he did after that.
yeah,
Like so we'll see a lot of those elements there. So it's becoming a trait of Brahmans's music after a while that there are a lot more freestyle elements. There was so much in OK Kanmani.
Yeah,
So
true,
much
true,
of it, like,
true.
right?
Very
You're
true.
like, where is he going with this? You know, like, what's the next chord he's going to play? It's so unpredictable.
Was that album in the loop for you too? Like 100, 200 times thingo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tele6 was like that. OK Kanmani was outright like that. I just instantly fell in love with it. But I've seen opposite reactions with other people. Like, for example, I played the songs as soon as it released, I played it to my wife.
Mm.
She hated it. And then after 3 months, I found that on loop on her phone. She was like, no, I gradually came to like it. You know, like how they say typically for romancers,
True.
cake pudikum, you know, anta
Correct.
madri.
Correct.
For me, it doesn't work like that. I'm extreme. I either love the work or I hate the work.
Mm.
So even with romancers work, there are some songs I totally love. There are some songs I don't go towards. Because I'm
I
like, I don't find anything interesting in that song.
I can relate to it.
Right? I mean, it's just a personal opinion. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what is the mood that you associate with the song. There are
Mm.
certain albums where every song is just like, oh man, I can't select which one to hear right now, right? I'm like, I
Correct.
just need the entire album. But there are certain albums where I don't go back to it. Then I keep wondering, you know, I start to imagine what was he doing in the studio? Like, did he just uh, did he get a creative block or did he just decide this is enough? Did the director just coerce him to finish the song in 48 hours? Like, what happened? Right?
Mm.
And we hear these stories from so many different musicians, right?
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
many different ways creativity is curtailed. And
Mm.
there may be commercial forces, there may be other obligations, and so many different things. And you don't know like what's happening, right? And there are so many musicians involved.
True.
You find directors giving music ideas, which I'm not going to comment upon. But then I'm like, you're working with an Oscar winner. Like, why would you, you
Yeah.
know? So I get into like what really happened in the studio at that point in time.
I can
And
totally
yeah,
relate with you, Vinod, on this.
right. But I mean, it's in no way. I'm not giving a commentary on his quality of work or anything, right? If anything, he's one of the most readily available encyclopedias for a musician to learn these aspects,
Yeah.
right? And
True.
also his choice of instruments. They keep changing every couple of years. I
Mm.
don't
Mm.
find him using the instruments that he used during Roja. Definitely not.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, obviously, because technology is improved. There are better sounding VSTs and
Yeah.
instruments and better manufactured guitars or whatever it is, right? You have a new breed of artists coming up with different
Mm.
kinds of talents and all of that. But even the choice of instruments that you use, they used to like that. You can tell literally this decade was this sound, like the next decade is this sound. So you can kind of identify that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't see this kind of variation in other artists.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
They're more by the genre. Like if you look at some of the
True.
English pop artists, even the young ones,
Yeah.
only the video is interesting and okay, they're dancing, all that's nice to look. It's all eye candy. But
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
down to the structure, get down to the craftsmanship. There's nothing.
True.
There's some music producer who's just, recycling some other stuff.
True.
I mean, no offense to them, but then probably they're also sticking to a formula. I
Mm.
don't see them experimenting with different arrangements of music. There's
Uh,
plenty available in Indian music, with Indian film music especially.
true. True.
And
True.
if you take any one random album of Brahman sir or any other,
Yeah.
uh, this generation musician, or even like in MSV sir's time,
Mm.
you will find at least half a dozen genres.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
why will you go outside to learn different genres? It has to be in the blood of every millennial and Gen Z Indian musician that you're supposed to be well versed in all these genres. Like just
Yes.
hear these albums for like 5 years straight. You're ready. That's your schooling,
Yeah. Very true. Wow. Well said.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
And
Just out of curiosity,
yeah,
how did you find Dil Bechara?
I've not heard all of the songs. I
Yeah.
again see I got looped into Rahman Sir's Dil Bechara
Yeah.
because I started watching that for Sushant. He's one of my favorite heroes.
Yeah.
And unfortunate things had to turn out like this. But again, Dil Bechara, it sounds like okay, this is it's a predictable tune, but then halfway through it becomes like freestyle,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
right? When he's there's a line about the birthday, right? And he's like birthday, day. I'm like, this is surely Rahman sir improvising in the studio. I'm pretty sure the lyricist didn't write the day so many times, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's just there, just feeling his mood there in the studio. I'm like, I just want to sing that line a second time and just hit the day like 4 times. I can predict with 90% certainty that it's Rahman sir just improvising right there. And he's like, this loop is cool. We'll just use this take.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
Pretty much.
mm.
So I like that.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2004 or 5. I attended a training session in Chennai for
Mm-hmm.
learning music production. There was
Okay.
some office in Alvarpet or somebody, some music producer was training, right? So
Yeah.
this was just introduction to some DAWs that you use, digital
Yeah.
audio workstations,
Yeah.
right? So the first example, he was like, just create whatever music you want. So I put together a whole bunch of random sounding stuff, and he was like, okay, switch off everything. Let's listen to your rhythm. So it was like fully mixed all over the place, like random stuff playing. And
Yeah.
he's like, do you listen to A.R. Rahman? I said, yeah, of course. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
And the number one thing you learn from Rahman sir's music, his rhythm is very predictable. It's very
True.
simple,
Yeah.
right? But it's the aesthetic combination that makes it sounds brilliant. If you
Mm,
switch off all the layers in any Rahman sir song
mm,
and just listen to the rhythm,
mm.
it sets the entire groove. So that
True.
sort of changed the very way I started listening to Rahman sir's music,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So then I'm like, if he's put so much thought for rhythm, what
mm.
happens to like the bass layers? What happens to the strings layers? So
Yeah.
there is a certain personality for every layer that he brings
Mm,
on, right?
true.
It's then it starts to become this is A.R. Rahman's music. His rhythm is like this, his strings is like this, his guitar
Mm,
is like this. Then
yeah.
you start looking at other musicians like that. Then you start judging your music like that. Then that's when, so it's a very unconscious process unless you start paying attention to this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then that's what people talk about. I'm inspired by Rahman. I'm inspired by this person. I'm inspired by that person. What you're really doing is you've unconsciously sort of gained this personality of how they
Mm,
think about rhythm, and you try to imitate that. And which is what I find myself doing. It's not that I'm going and looking for in this particular song, what rhythm did you use? That's straight up copying, right? But then you get you're
yeah.
like, okay, this is how he approaches it, right?
Yeah.
Is what they say, like imitation is the best form of flattery, right? And you tend to do that. Like
Mm,
every person, when they have a guru, one way or the other, you imitate your guru at certain
yeah.
points.
Yeah.
And when you've done it enough, you realize that you have gained enough comfort in sort
Yeah.
of stepping out of that imitation circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you start to do your own. But that streak or that residue of that imitation will always be there.
True.
So
True.
even though if I look back at my originals that I've done this year, I did two, both are in Tamil.
Yep.
One is Kale Portal, another one is I did one song called Kandabadi Kadali, which
I love
is
both.
my first experiment in R&B.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started hearing this African American artist called H.E.R. She's a
Right.
pretty young girl. She must be early 20s, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Amazing artist with R&B. So I started hearing, because of her, I got interested in R&B. So I
Wow.
heard a lot more R&B, and then I'm like, what happens if Rahman Sir's influence comes into R&B?
Yeah.
So that was essentially what Kandavali Kadali is,
Mm,
right?
I
So
love.
even the chord structure, and
Yeah.
so it has to be that sort of very flowy. And R&B is very laid back.
Yeah.
It has to give that sense of நான் வந்து கார் ஓட்டின்னு போறேன் அப்படியே மிதந்துட்டே போறேன் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி, so that sense has to come. So I think back to um, some of the older songs that Raman sir did. I think one was what is that? Renatu from
Oh
Delhi.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Definition of free flowing. It's like I wish I was in the studio session when he recorded that. Totally random.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like I'm mocking him or anything. I'm sure if he had done another 6 or 7 different takes,
Mm,
each one of them would have been as cool as the one that got released,
mm,
right? But
mm.
that's the strength of his craftsmanship. That's what we need to learn.
True.
If randomly you can come up with this tune, which
Mm,
it's very fluid, right? It's like you're
mm,
just like dancing without any choreography, like you're just
mm,
blindly just moving. It's like that.
mm,
Ranatu's like
mm,
that,
mm.
and I felt that with R&B. So
Yeah.
for me, my familiarity is all of Rahman Sir's music and his influence and his approach. I'm like, what songs are like this? And I go back to it, which is why I started focusing on the last 6 months or so. I've been hearing a lot of R&B. So I kept going back to his older albums
Yeah.
and started looking at songs that were kind of free flowing like this.
Right.
Raina Tu stood out. There was one he did in Jane Tu Ya Jane Na. There was in.
Mm.
जाने तू ही जाने ना. There is some structure to it, but after a point it becomes. And
Yeah.
then there is a song called Jugni in
Yeah.
Kaatru.
Oof.
That's like one. I can't even think of a word to describe that. But there is a bit of that free flow there, right? When
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
mostly music.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who the rap artist is. There's a female rap artist. I
Mm.
think that there's a music section that comes before the rap.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
sounds very larger than life, like you're scaling Mount Everest, pretty much. That's where they shot it's in
Yeah.
Kashmir where they filmed
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not. One of the air bases there, right? So it has
True.
to reflect that place, right? So when I heard that first time,
Yeah.
I think I heard the album last winter.
Mm.
No, it's already out in 2018, right?
It was 2018.
2018. So 2018 winter is when I heard the album.
Mm. Mm.
So Inga, I live in Minneapolis now, and we have one of the harshest winters in the United States.
Yeah.
And so it was snowing, and I started hearing that. And I'm like, oh my God, like this song is just perfect for this climate. And then I'm like, okay, what's the next song? Then Shasha Tirupati starts to sing Van Varvan. I'm like, what are you guys doing to me? Like, just start, you know? So it was like that. So when I heard that, I was like, Jugni is such a well done piece.
I agree with you.
So much of free flow. So for me, I've focused on so many different aspects of Rahman sir's music, but then this thing about the free flow aspect of it stands out a lot, and it talks a little bit more about where he's evolved as a musician and a
Mm.
composer,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
And now all other bigger budget films where you can kind of tell that he's going by a structure.
Yeah. True.
Things like free flow. Another one is Rockstar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I even wonder, the amount of free flow in the album maybe also reflects his relationship with the director,
Mm. Mm. True.
right? Because then I'm thinking, okay, he worked with Imtiaz Ali. He did like 2 projects or maybe more. He did another one right after that, Highway.
I
That also like kind of free flow like that.
correct.
So
Correct.
then I'm like, Mani Ratnam sir, needless to ask, but I mean, he's been doing so much of free flow right from there, right? So that somehow this it just stands out for me.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, Yeah,
I
so that's been sort of my
Interestingly
observation.
enough, right? I think it was just last week when I don't know if you know P.A. Deepak, the mixing engineer in Sir's team. He's a Grammy Award-winning mixing engineer. He came on the podcast as well.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
interestingly enough, he picked the songs that you just mentioned.
Okay.
They are some of his favorite mixes that he
Right.
was challenged with to mix. And he said there were a lot of trials and errors, and it was pretty challenging for him to convince Sir
Mm.
final output of the mixing. And
Jugni
Rena
is just
Jugni and what was the other one you said?
uh,
Uh,
Vanvaruvan?
could be. Yeah,
Okay.
but there were these three tracks he pointed out. But Renatu, yes, oof, yeah.
I think that's one of the earliest song he introduced the fingerboard also.
Correct, correct.
Then he used it again in 127 Hours, the Hollywood movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
அதெல்லாம் வாய்ப்பே இல்ல. He just very casually brought in Darbari Kannada and Acid Darbari. I'm
Mm.
like, whoa, okay. When I saw the movie, I heard the track first.
Yeah,
I heard it on YouTube first. Somebody had posted, shared it on Facebook. Then
yeah,
I'm like, okay, where could you possibly use this? Like, did he just create some, okay,
mm.
here, just take, buy one, get one free kind of track? Like, just take it, like, just, yeah, do what you want with it. But then when I saw the movie after that, I went to the theater just to watch the movie for this track. I was
Yeah,
like, where the hell has he used it? It just blew my mind. I couldn't take it, right? So I went to the theater, I saw this movie, and then there was that one scene where this guy is just stuck. He has
yeah,
no water, he's just looking around for help.
yeah.
And there he puts acid Darbari. I was just, oh,
True, true.
where a level that was just like, it takes a different level of
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
there. And so
Good.
even his re-recording and also, re-recording, I got another example that you should go back and see. Rang De Basanti.
Yeah,
There is you've seen the movie, right?
yeah. Of course.
There's a scene earlier on in the movie where they introduce all the heroes.
Yeah,
Madhavan comes, sorry, not A.R. Rahman, Amir Khan, Siddharth, uh, who's the
Kunal.
other Kunal, and then there's one more person, I forgot his name. Um, Manoj something? I don't know.
Yeah, I've forgotten too.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but he's done so many other movies after that, right?
Yeah.
So the very next scene is Siddharth going to his house,
Yeah.
and his father, the role is played by Anupam Kher,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right? He's like a huge business
Yeah.
magnate, and
Yeah.
he's brokering a like a bribery deal on the phone, saying I need a share, something, right?
Yeah.
So there's the scene where there's this tension that he wants his son Siddharth to go study
Mm,
MBA in an
mm,
American university, and Siddharth is like least interested because
mm,
he's like, my mom is not there, and I don't want to leave my friends, and I'm just a very sad guy kind of look,
mm,
right?
mm.
In that, to show the tension,
Yeah.
he just plays one chord throughout, and it's like this warm C kind of a
Yeah.
pad.
Yeah.
It just keeps coming and going.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no music, and when
Yeah.
there's no dialogue, and when
Yeah.
you think silence is going to fill the space, Raman sir gives that one chord with that one voice.
Yeah. True.
It's just like some sort of liquid just filling up your face, It's like, where is that coming from? That was one. The Rangte Basanti is one of the best albums he's done for re-recording. Then
I
there's another scene where they go back and forth. It's not a linear film, right? They keep
mm,
going back
mm,
and forth between the historical characters and the present day characters.
mm,
So there's one scene where the two of the freedom fighters,
mm,
one of them is Hindu, the other is Muslim.
mm,
It is to show how freedom fighters,
mm,
were together despite religious differences, whereas how in present day people are fighting
mm,
on religious grounds. So these two guys were looking out for each other's lives, and one of them is about to get caught, and he takes the horse and he
yeah.
tries to escape. The
Yeah.
camera angle is something very different in that because they do a first person, like a video game kind of a thing. But then the music that Raman sir puts there, it's a 5 beat cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so something like something like 5 or 7 beat, I don't know. 14, yeah, so 7 beat cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So it's only like full saxophone power or brass power, that kind of a thing. Phenomenal,
Yeah.
right? But to think of that, then either the climaxing,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is a good one.
the chorus, the strength of the chorus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
யோசிக்கவே முடியாதெல்லாம். So it's like he's redefined even the re-recording parts. We don't see these kind
Yeah.
of experiments in other Tamil films.
Mm, mm, mm.
These are very iconic pieces or iconic scenes from these movies. Of
Yeah.
course, by themselves, the screenplay, the story, all of that is brilliant. That's the director's this thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from a music composer, from a re-recording perspective, these scenes are like they just stick in my head all the time.
Do you watch almost every movie that comes out which has an A.R.RAHMAN tag in it?
Mostly,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
most of them. I've
Yeah.
seen most of them. But I somehow find he's experimented only in those films a little bit more. I
Yeah.
somehow feel there's a correlation between how much he's experimented and what his relationship with the director is. Happens with Manisha's movies.
Yeah.
Happens with Rakesh Om Prakash, Delhi 6 and this one, Rang De Basanti. Happens
Yeah.
with Imtiaz Ali.
Correct.
Rockstar is there, Highway is there.
Correct.
I don't
Correct.
know if he
Correct.
did any other movies with Imtiaz Ali. I'm not familiar with other works of Imtiaz Ali. What else? Which other director has he worked with? If
Shankar?
you, Shankar, yeah. But Shankar sir, I think he's very particular about what he wants, right?
Correct. Correct.
In all aspects.
Yeah.
Shankar சார்னாலே பிரம்மாண்டம் தான் ஒரே ஒரு வார்த்தை தான் அது கீழே அவர் வரவே மாட்டார். Right? That's one thing that I think I sort of share with Shankar sir, even with my goals, however small they are in comparison to that, is never lose sight of your goal. ஒரு மாசம் ஆகுதா 3 மாசம் ஆகுதா 1 வருஷம் ஆகுதா 1.5 வருஷம் ஆகுதா அதெல்லாம் பிரச்சனையே இல்லை. You want that, you go for that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a phenomenal thing to
Yeah.
to be like that, right? Every movie of his has been like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so if you see his previous movies like Endiran, Robo 2.0,
Gentleman.
Gentleman, எல்லாமே வந்து you can see that there's a streak of Shankar sir in that. Of course, Raman sir's genius.
Correct.
But
Correct.
as if you've heard enough of Raman sir's music, you will know that there is a
Yeah.
lot of Shankar sir's input in that.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
even in that requirement, Rahman sir's music will like just stand out. But look at the examples that I said. You know, it almost feels like Rahman sir literally dictated what the music should be
Yeah, yeah.
with nobody else's influence. At least that's just my
Yeah.
speculation, right? I mean, each of us can
What
come up
about
with it.
Bharat Bala? That's another
Huh?
good one. Bharat Bala.
Bharat
He did
Bala?
Marian.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think they've worked enough to.
They haven't worked enough. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it
Yeah,
could be a collaboration, right? It's hard to predict where they went.
yeah,
But even
yeah,
then, like look at the pieces like Enga Pona Rasa.
yeah, yeah.
Very unpredictable in terms of even the rhythm. Rhythm நானா ஞாபகம் வருது. அது என்னது? நானே வருகிறேன்.
Oh, yeah.
என்ன
True.
track இது? அப்போ, right? So I pinged both Sasha and Satyaprakash.
Mm.
I'm like, dude, what talam is this? They both were very smart to say it's a combination of 8 and 7.
Right.
But then they stopped there. They're like, you go figure it out. So to this date, when I hear that song, I'm like, yeah, I'll just start counting and then I'll lose track. So I'm like,
Yeah,
what were they thinking? Like, how did they mix that? How did they come up with the structure? How did they record the song? It's very
yeah.
hard to tell. It sounds very free flow. That's another,
Mm.
it feels like it's structured, but then I was surprised when I saw Jonita sing that song live on one of Rahman sir's shows.
She did. She
Yeah,
did.
she did
It's
a
true.
phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you attempt the song? Like this, it's like tightrope walking. But of course, they're all like geniuses in their own field, right? So if Rahman sir knows how to pull off the song, then they'll do it. I mean, it's easier to do in the studio than live, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because of the inherent structure of the song.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying the how ready all the other performing artists had to be in that orchestra to
Yeah.
support a song like Nane Vargiren,
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed.
and how many things they would have fixed in the rehearsal, saying this is how many bars you must hold this. This is exactly where the drum should kick in. And now, if
Wow.
it's the studio, singer will sing and go. After that, it's up to the music producers and the assistants, and of course, Rahman sir to sit through and sort of structure the song in any way you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Indeed.
easy. Yeah, I shouldn't say very easy, but it's far easier to do that in studio because you have full control about every
Correct.
element of the song.
Correct.
But so it's one thing to do it in the studio, totally a different thing to do it live, right? So I was like, Ajijo, why are they doing this? Huh? I mean, there's so many other straightforward songs to do. The crowd will anyway go crazy, right? So, but that's
Amazing,
I'm like,
man. So cool
yeah,
to hear all this.
yeah. I mean,
And
I speak to so many of these artists over the last couple months, and everybody
yeah.
is saying, especially the ones that are touring with Rahman sir
Mm.
for live
Mm.
shows. I met Haricharan in Chicago last year, or yeah, last year. Then I spoke to Shasha 2 years ago when I met her
Mhm.
for the first time, and a few other people
Was
also.
that in a concert?
Huh?
Was that in a concert? Is where you met
No, no,
Sasha?
no, no. Sasha, I just met separately in Bombay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Haricharan I met after the concert. Then I also got introduced to Darshana, who lives here in the US, in
Oh
Chicago.
yeah.
Right? So I speak to a lot of these people. All of them come with the same insight that Raman sir's desire to improvise on the spot has grown
Mm.
several fold compared to what he was, let's say, five years or 10 years before, right? And
Yeah.
you can see
Yeah.
that go through any of the last 2 3 years concert, every concert,
Yeah.
he'll pick one song and there's already improvisation right there, right?
Ve- Very interestingly enough, since you mentioned it, I have traveled a lot for his concerts, and in fact, I was there in February in Trichy as well. I flew
Mm.
all the way from Australia just for his concert, and last year I did it twice. I was in Chennai and for something else. So I've done a number of them, and then I do get asked from time to time from other guys saying, "Why do you keep traveling to go see Rahman's concerts? Because isn't it all the same that he does?" I
Mm.
said, not really. There is always something new, and you need to be a Sirs fan to go and experience.
புரிஞ்சவன்
So,
பிஸ்தா அவ்வளவுதான்
yeah,
அவ்வளவுதான் that's basically it. If you
true,
know, you know. அவ்வளவுதான் அது.
indeed. And but like I want to touch about your childhood. Did you know music was the thing for you when you were growing up?
It was a given because everybody, like my
Sort
mother's family is all musical genes.
Right.
So I was telling somebody the other day, my mom's mom,
Yeah.
Amama as we call her,
Yeah.
Avanga, when she was younger, it was during a time when it was not encouraged for women to learn music.
Mm, mm,
Pretty much the cliched of you
yeah.
belong in the kitchen, like you're just supposed to get married and serve your husband, right? So she grew up in a no different household like that.
Mm,
But she was so interested in music, she and her older sister used to hide in the kitchen of their
mm,
house
mm,
while their father taught the male students.
mm.
So that's how my grandmother learned. So she's self-taught,
Yeah. Wow.
right? So she used to listen to All India Radio concerts,
Mm,
write down notation. அப்படிதான் அவங்க பாட்டு
mm,
படிச்சாங்க.
mm,
And then she ensured my mom and her brother got,
mm,
uh, you know, they learned Carnatic music. So all her grandchildren, me, my brother, my cousins, everybody, we've
mm.
all been trained in Carnatic music. It's
Wow.
like you will get trained to the professional level,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we will try to push you on the stage as much as we can.
Mm,
Whether you make it your profession or not, we will still try to decide that.
mm, mm.
Let's see what life has in store for you. This was what was given to me when I was a kid. This
Wow.
is pretty much that's given to anybody who's identified with a creative talent in most Indian families,
Right.
particularly South Indian families, and the bond with Carnatic music goes hand in hand. It's needless to ask, right? It's the most defining characteristics of most South Indian
Mm,
households. Especially, they'll put you in the class, and then later on, they'll like then we'll figure out whether you have the talent or not. But it was a given, right? I mean, it's such a beautiful part about the culture. Of course, yeah, we all complained and cried through our noses. All that is there, but it's such a effective way of maintaining that aspect of our heritage through the
mm,
generation.
mm, mm,
So for me, it was just a given. They're like, music will be a part. How it will be a part, we will decide later.
mm,
But for now,
mm,
you just get trained.
mm.
So then extensive training, right? From I think I was 3 or 4 years old. அப்பவே சாப்பாஸ் ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டாங்க,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So everybody, like all children, at least on my mother's side.
Yeah.
So I clearly have a distinction of
Mm,
uh, my mother's side, all of his compulsory music, but then father's side, they didn't have that kind of interest.
mm,
They went
mm,
on to pursue other opportunities
mm,
and interests.
mm,
So
mm.
it was like that. So you had
Nice.
to go for music class. But after, see, when you realize you have some amount of talent and you realize that you're practicing, you're going to learn from
Yeah.
such big stalwarts, you start to take ownership of that after a while.
Yeah.
Like most artists, you will find that, when you realize you've reached a certain level of maturity in the art form,
Mm,
and that you can actually make something out of yourself by putting
mm,
enough effort, you start
mm,
to own it. So by my early teens, I kind of realized that, and I
mm,
liked.
mm,
I
mm.
only liked it. I didn't go crazy about it. I started becoming crazy by a time when I finished my teens. I was like, this is super cool, right? And then by that time, of course, like I was listening to only A.R. Rahman and Yanni.
Yeah.
Yanni was a big influence too for me.
Right.
Um, as far as I remember, he was the only other sort of Western classical orchestral musician who was experimenting with
Yeah.
7-beat cycles and 5-beat cycles. Of
Yeah.
course, Dream Theater was also there,
Mm,
but I couldn't. There wasn't enough melody in their music for me to, because I'm like, I'm coming from a Carnatic standpoint. I couldn't take Dream Theater, right? Nothing about their quality, but I'm just like so close. So for a long time, I heard only A.R. Rahman's music. Then when
mm.
I came to college, all my seniors was like, "Who do you think you are? Huh? Have you not heard MSV Sir or Raja?" I was like, "No, I've not heard." And they were like one step close to like, "We'll punch the hell out of you. Your work is to go listen to MSV Raja for the next 6 months." இல்லைன்னா உனக்கு காலேஜ் பேண்ட்ல இடம் கிடையாது அப்படின்ட்டாங்க. நல்ல வேலை மிரட்டி விட்டாங்க. So I went back and did all of that, right? Not that I didn't stay away. It's not like I stayed away from
Yeah.
listening to the previous generation's music, but
Yeah.
Raman sir's music was so new
Mm,
because I had heard Ilayaraja sir's music. அவர் வந்து he uh, he was serving a different audience.
mm,
Ilayaraja sir.
mm,
He was serving like என்னுடைய அப்பா அம்மா or என்னுடைய தாத்தா பாட்டி அந்த generation.
mm.
They didn't take to Raman sir's music when he was new. So when he did Roja, when he did Rangila and all, like, yaar in the paiyan. The mother, I've heard people say comments like this, right? And I'm like, why would you say this? This is such cool music, right? So I'm like, generational gap, like how you consume the music, right? So
Yeah.
that was there. So obviously that's one of the strongest reasons why I didn't want to. And
Yeah.
there's nobody at home to tell me,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, film music, okay, listen to whatever you want. They're like that. They're like, oh, you're not listening to Carnatic music. And obviously, because they thought that the more film music you listen, you will lose your Carnatic sense. Which is also true in a way. When you're still learning, you want to make sure that you're properly trained, and until you reach a point where you can differentiate the nuances of both those, they want to make sure that you're learning. Or if you're fully into film music, you might as well focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So அந்த இது கண்டிப்பா இருந்தது, right? So, but then, so like nobody was there to tell me what to listen to and what not to. I was like, I like Rahman, I'll listen. I like Yanni, I'll listen. Right? Then when I was in college, my seniors like, really go listen to Ilayaraja and MS Vishwanathan. Then when I heard that, I was like, oh no, what have I done? Like, why did I miss all of this awesome music all this while, right? So then college was just a lot of music. Like, I had to keep up with Rahman sir's releases. I had to keep up with all of their, all the previous music, all the previous movies with Ilayaraja sir. And அது வரைக்கும் like எதாவது பாட்டு வந்ததுன்னா, like I won't pay attention.
Yeah.
Now suddenly first year of college, I'm listening to Ilayyanila right from the first. I've heard it like 1 dozen times. I'm listening to Ilayyanila. I'm listening to Poongatre. I'm listening to the Valayosai. எல்லாம் பேஸ் கிட்டார் எல்லாம் அப்படியே எடுத்து அப்படியே ஒரு வழி பண்ணிட்டாங்க அந்த மாதிரி. So I'm like, ஐயோ நம்மளாம் வெளில போய் மியூசிஷியன் சொல்லிக்க கூடாது அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி ஆயிடுச்சு. So அது ஒரு லேர்னிங் கர்வ். இந்த மாதிரி தான் இருந்தது. So it's not that உனக்கு என்ன தெரியும், ஸ்டேஜ் தான் இது. So it's more of influence. So when college வந்தப்புறம் திடீர்னு I found a lot of people, it was a learning moment for me. People were they spoke highly of every composer in Tamil industry. Right? So suddenly I started paying attention to all the other composers. அப்புறம் திடீர்னு பார்த்தா எனக்கு வந்து திடீர்னு ஒரு ஆசை, வித்யாசாகர் சார் மியூசிக் மேல அப்படி ஒரு ஆசை, இவ்வளவு அழகா கம்போஸ் பண்றாரு அப்படின்னு. Then I'm like, அடடா தேவா சார்னா கானா பாட்டு, அந்த ஒரு ஜான்ராவே நான் வந்து இவ்வளவு நாள் வந்து என்ன சொல்றது கவனிக்காம விட்டுட்டேனே அப்படின்ட்டு. So I started, then it dawned upon me, like if you're serious about becoming a musician, like if you want to, if you aspire to become a music director in Tamil, ஏன்னா அன்னைக்கு அதுதான் like North Star goal. எனக்கு தமிழ் இண்டஸ்ட்ரியில மியூசிக் டைரக்டர் ஆயிடணும், ரஹ்மான் சாருக்கு பாடிடணும். ரெண்டுமே நடக்கல இது வரைக்கும், அது வேற விஷயம். நானும் அதுக்குதான் வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். ரைட்டா, ரஹ்மான் சார் ரிட்டையர் ஆகிறதுக்கு முன்னாடியாவது அவர் ஒரு தடவை கூப்பிட்டு, தம்பி நீ நல்லா பாடுறப்பா, இந்தப்பா ஒரு பாட்டு பாடிட்டு போப்பா, ஒரு 4 லைன் கொடுத்தா போதும், அவ்வளவுதான். ரைட்டா, அந்த சீன்லாம் எப்படி வரும்னு யோசிச்சு வச்சிட்டேன். என்ன வருஷம் இந்த சீன் இந்த வருஷம் இல்ல, அப்படிதான் நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு. ஸோ என்ன மட்டும் இல்ல, நிறைய சிங்கர்ஸ் அப்படிதான் யோசிச்சுட்டு இருக்காங்க. ரைட்டா. So it was a learning moment for me. So now ivlo I had studied Rahman sir's music, I'm like, I have to do the same thing with the other composers.
Yeah.
So adu inni varaiku poitu irukku.
Nice.
I was like, Rahman sir evlo pantaru, Ilayaraja sir music la edha na enga aarambikkiradhu, தளபதி ஒரு பக்கம் ஆச்சா, முடிஞ்சது. அது வந்து ஒரு ஆல்பம் போறோம்.
True.
சுந்தரி கண்ணா செய்தி கேட்டால் நீ காலி, அவ்வளவுதான். இதுக்கு நீ ஸ்ட்ரிங்ஸ் உட்காந்து நோட்ஸ் எழுதுனா முடிஞ்சது ஆச்சா. So very true. And then when I look back at, now I'm a big Rajini fan. So when I look back at some of his films, I'm looking at who are the music directors, like who did Autokara, like who did Singamundru Porapattadai.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, நான் இது வரைக்கும் இதெல்லாம் வந்து நோட்டீஸே பண்ணலையே, ஏன் வந்து I was just stuck to like one or two composers. So it was a big, எனக்கு college was a big learning moment as a musician. நிறைய பேர் வந்து காலேஜ் சூப்பர், நம்ம வந்து கிளாஸ் கட் அடிக்கலாம், அதெல்லாம் சரி. பட் ஆஸ் அ மியூசிஷியன் எனக்கு வந்து இதுதான் ஒரு பெரிய இது வந்தது. அண்ட் வி ஹேட் ஒன், ஐ ஃபர்காட் ஹிஸ் நேம், எங்களுக்கு வந்து டு பெர்ஃபார்ம் ஃபார் பேண்ட் காம்படிஷன்ஸ் வி ஹேட் ஒரு கிட்டாரிஸ்ட் ஆர்டிஸ்ட் ஒருத்தர் வந்தார். அந்த சார் பேர் மறந்து போச்சு எனக்கு. அவர் நான் 2 தடவை மீட் பண்ணிருப்பேன். இல்ல அவர் இல்ல, கீத் பீட்டர்ஸ் ஐ நோ ஹூ இட் இஸ். இவர் வந்து இல்லம்மா, he said he has played guitar for Ilayaraja sir.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
I even vaguely remember his face. ரொம்ப வேகா இருக்கு. அவர் வீட்டுக்கு போய் நான் நோட்ஸ்லாம் கத்துக்கிட்டு அந்த மாதிரி. ஸோ அவர் வந்து உட்காந்து எனக்கு வந்து கற்றுக் கொடுக்குறாரு. கீபோர்டில் இந்த மாதிரி வாசி, இளையநிலாக்கு பார்ட்ஸ் வாசி. ஸோ அவர் பாடுறாரு அவர் பாடுறாரு அந்த மாதிரி அவர் பாடி காட்டுறாரு. ஸோ இட்ஸ் லைக் கிட்டார் ஒரு நோட் சொல்றது ஒண்ணு, நோட் சொல்லிடலாம், பட் அது வந்து ஃபார் யூ டு கேப்சர் இட் இமீடியட்லி. அந்த நோட்ஸ்லாம் வந்து எப்படி அவர் வந்து வாசிச்சு காட்டினா நீ அப்படியே ரீப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்ணிடுவியா கீபோர்ட்ல, ஒரு 10 தடவை பண்ணாதான் வரும். இல்ல யூ ஷுட் பி somebody who can read notes if they just put the notation in front, right? So I'm like காலேஜ் போய் படிச்சு இதெல்லாம் முடிச்சுட்டு அப்புறம் பேண்ட் ப்ராக்டிஸ் அப்புறம் நோட்டேஷனா காலி தான். லைக் அண்ட் அட் த சேம் டைம் யூஆர் 18, யூஆர் ட்ரைங் டு மேக் an impression on your seniors, you want to be in the college band, right? You know the typical attitude there, right? So like எப்படியாவது இந்த சார் இம்ப்ரெஸ் பண்ணி பேண்ட்ல ஒரு இடத்த முடிச்சிடணும். ஸோ நான் ஆர்கியூலாம் பண்ணியிருக்கேன், நம்ம ஏன் ரஹ்மான் சார் பாட்டு எடுத்து வாசிக்க கூடாது, ஏன்னா அதெல்லாம் நாங்க வீட்டுல போய் ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணுவோம்ல. லைக் இல்ல நீ இளையராஜா சார் பாட்டுக்கு நீ கீபோர்ட்ல நீ பேஸ் கிட்டார் வாசி பரவாயில்ல அப்படின்னு அந்த மாதிரி. ஸோ ஐம் லைக் இவ்வளவு விஷயம் இருக்கு, ரைட்? அப்புறம் தான் லேட்டர் ஆன் ஐ ஸ்டார்டட் டு, பை தென் ஃபியூ இயர்ஸ் டவுன் த லைன் I started seeing interviews of Rahman sir. So அப்பதான் எனக்கு தெரியவே வந்தது that he used to play and program for இளையராஜா sir in the past. I like ஆஹா கனெக்ஷன் அப்படி போகுதா, நம்ம தான் லூசுத்தனமா இதெல்லாம் புரியாம உட்காந்துருக்கோம் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இருந்தது, ரைட்டா? So இதெல்லாமே ஒரு things like that. Then I started reading about other musicians. Somehow I just get the feeling that everybody's worked for everybody else at some point in time. Very unique arrangement. I don't see this happening in other industries, right? Or maybe it does. They just don't talk about it. Right? இவர் ஹாரிஸ் ஜெயராஜ் பார்த்தா நான் ரஹ்மான் வாசிருக்கேன், இளையராஜா வாசிருக்கேங்கிறாரு. ரஹ்மான் சார் பார்த்தா நான் இளையராஜா சாருக்கு வாசிருக்கேங்கிறாரு. சந்தோஷ் நாராயண் பத்தி யாரோ என் ஃப்ரெண்ட் யாரோ சொன்னா, yeah he used to work with Rahman sir briefly அப்படின்னாங்க. ஹே என்ன எல்லாரும் கூட ஒர்க் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க, அதான் வந்து you are all there because that. So it definitely pays off, right? So everybody is grown off of each other. Correct. அது ஒரு ரொம்ப ஒரு என்ன சொல்றது ஒரு அழகான ஒரு thing to maintain, right? We don't know how many of the new coming musicians have that sort of an opportunity, or whether they even make use of such an opportunity. Correct. Right? So think about musicians like Karthik Devaraj, phenomenal keyboardist, right? He's coming on the podcast next week. Okay. Right? Like I can't imagine a show without Karthik today, like an A.R.RAHMAN show, right? You might remember, I think in one of the concerts, Sir said he's the secret weapon. Yeah, pretty much. Right? Yeah. So it's become like that. So, and then the other singers who were like some of the chorus singers were there. For Shashala, like avale sonna, like she started as a chorus singer, right? சாரோட that Coke Studio sessionsல இருந்து ஆரம்பிச்சு அங்க தானே வந்தா, right? So yeah, so just looking back at those musicians is just to be in a studio session, to like just work. There's also there's an engineer, is her name Srinidhi, right? Yeah, I heard from someone that one of the singer, I forget who, they're like, oh, there's this awesome new sound engineer அப்படின்னாங்க. ஸ்ரீநிதி அப்படின்னு யாருப்பா, நான் கேட்டதே இல்லை அப்படின்ட்டு வந்து இந்த பாட்டெல்லாம் போய் கேளு அப்படின்னாங்க. லைக் ஆஹா இந்த மாதிரிலாம் புதுசா ஆளுங்க வந்து. But then I realized the more I started getting introduced to and after Shape of You, what happened was a lot of musicians started connecting with me on Facebook. Nice. So when I started engaging with them, when I started chatting, reaching out to them just to find out what is your background, I do that especially. I don't know how many people will hear this. If you reach out to me on Facebook and if you're a musician and if you find me connecting with you, I will want to know your musical background. Correct. That's one thing that I take a lot of effort to find out as a musical background or what work they've done essentially, you know. And it's very important because not that I'm going to determine or judge you or anything. I'm nobody to do that. But to see what are your musical sensibilities. Correct. What is it that I can learn from you? Correct. உனக்கு ஒரு யூடியூப் சேனல் இருக்குன்னா நீ அதுல ஒரு 10 பாட்டு பாடிருக்கேன்னா I want to go listen to that. அதுல என்ன புதுசா இருக்கு, நம்ம இதுல இருந்து என்ன கத்துக்கலாம். ஓ இந்த விஷயத்தை இப்படி பண்ணிருக்காங்களே நல்லா இருக்கே அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி. அது அப்படியே காப்பி அடிச்சா அது கேவலம். Right? But I've seen some very interesting, I've gotten introduced to some very good ways of thinking about music and the dynamics of creating a song or a song arrangement எப்படி பண்ணணும் அந்த மாதிரி. most of the singers are, they're pretty straightforward. They're just there to sing. But when you look at music producers, when you look at keyboard artists, when you look at arrangers, I have ஒரு தனிப்பட்ட முறையில ஒரு என்ன சொல்றது ஒரு ஈர்ப்பு. Because for someone like A.R. Rahman, he is working with so many music producers as part of his team, right? So a lot of the music that you hear has the influence of these people.
Yep.
So the music producer in me is thinking, who did this? Why did they do this for this particular scene? What skill do they have that obviously they've learned a lot by observing Rahman sir as to how he scores music, right? So I start thinking about இந்த படத்துல இந்த சீன்ல இந்த மாதிரி ஏன் மியூசிக் கொடுத்திருக்காங்க, இந்த பாட்டுக்கு ஏன் இந்த மாதிரி ரிதம் கொடுத்திருக்காங்க, அதுக்கு ஏதாவது இருக்குமா. So I go looking for that person. So creditsல இருக்கும் இல்லையா,
yeah, of course,
used by this and this
the
person.
whole credits thing itself started to come into thing only after Sir, right?
ஆமா, அது வேற விஷயம். அதை பத்தி இன்னொரு ஃபுல் டே பேசலாம், ரைட்டா? ஏன்னா அதை பத்தி பேசினா நம்ம தமிழ்ல தான் பேசி ஆகணும், இல்லைன்னா கல்லடி தான், ரைட்டா? ஸோ அது ஒன்று இருக்கு. But when I see those names of those music producers, I go look for them and see what are the songs they worked on. என்ன படத்துல ஒர்க் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. So இந்த மாதிரி aspects is what a lot of people don't pay attention to. I got connected with this person named Megdeep Bose. He's an amazing music producer. Okay. He works very frequently with Bollywood music directors. Okay. Recently, he's done a lot of work with Amal Malik.
Oh, right. Okay.
And one of the shows, I think Amal Malik, just like how Sir is acknowledged Karthik Devraj, Amal Malik gave a shout out to Megdeep Bose, right? So there is that increasing sort of or a collective demand for recognizing these artists. So otherwise, what happens is they'll put the music director's name and the whole country thinks that this person did it.
Correct.
That's not it. That's not the truth. Correct. It's not that we are taking away benefit or credit from that person, right? If you look at the success of the iPhone, it was Steve Jobs, but that doesn't mean the other engineers who worked on it are any less, right? Everybody's contribution is there. So it's a team effort led by somebody.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm thinking, I'm an independent musician. I'm looking at what's my next music going to sound like? What's my next song going to sound like? What are the instruments I'm using? What notes am I playing? So in the mari irukumbodha, I start to think, how are these music producers looking at the song?
So true. Amazing. Yeah.
So it's very interesting to think about how they structure the songs like this. So.
And of course, man, this was like in-depth discussion. I absolutely loved it. I'm sure. Look, as part of this podcast journey that I've been, one of the things that happened or evolved as part of this is I've also started to build what's called this I Love ARR community. So this community basically brings all the Sir's fans together and to unite them and to spread love and happiness. That's all. So that's just pretty much the objective. And as part of that, there are a number of these smart cookies, if I can call, who have come into this group. They go in-depth analysis of each and everything of a song. And that blows me away sometimes. And there are some crazy fanatics who even remember the background music that was played in Iruvar, for example, and the camera angle also they remember to that level. And it's just amazing. And when I think it was just last week when I said to them that Vinod Krishnan has accepted and he's coming on the podcast, they were a number of guys who said, okay, we absolutely love his voice. Do ask him about this. So there are a few things that I have to ask you on their
Absolutely.
Yes. Because they will shoot me down if I don't.
No, I totally get it. I would love to go those questions.
Are you a bit over?
I'm cool, man. My evening's open. All yours. Go for it.
So the thing is, I mean, one of the things is they wanted to, like, okay, I'll start off with mine, right? I absolutely love the work that you do, man. I adore your work. And then I have a huge amount of respect, especially the fact that the influence of Carnatic music that you have. I'm a sucker for Carnatic music. Although I may not be able to tell you the ragas or whatever, but I only have this Kelvinyanam and it sounds good to my ears and it takes me to a different world. And that's pretty much it.
Right.
One of the songs that I absolutely love is Rangapura.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember that, but that is something that I absolutely love. I have gone back and heard it a few times, and Any memories of that, and maybe a line of that would also be amazing.
When we did the Rangapura Vihara sound, that was, I would just say, it just happened because I wasn't even. It wasn't even the plan that I was supposed to be part of that. Can I just get the lights here? My
Go
face is
for it.
getting
Yeah. Yeah, I did think that.
Okay. It's a little bit better, yeah, po?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, kunjo awkward lighting. I'm kind of rearranging my room here, but okay. So yeah, it was the other musicians were working on it. They were supposed to finish the song, and I just said, okay, just send it to me for review. I'm happy to give some third-person perspective, right? So I said that in the capacity of being creative director for the fellowship, where every piece that they do, like we sort of discuss the arrangement. I give them ideas. Like I don't tell them what to do. So it's more of being a facilitator, if you will, right? Because each of those musicians who come there, they have their strengths in their respective fields, right? So I'm just here as a okay. I have a sense of what Indian raga audience likes. So I'm just here to sort of give you some ideas, and I'm not a supervisor or anything of that sort, right? So they did that, and then they're like, okay, we think we need two male voices. I'm like, okay, fine, you can bring another person. They're like, no, we want you to sing. We'll just do a rough draft, just to see how it looks, like how it sounds. So we did a rough draft, and then we sent it to the Indian Raga creative team. They're like, oh, this is superb. Like we should just stick to this. But then what happened was we had a lot of discussion back and forth about the chord structure. It's something that I've still, it's a point of, I wouldn't say disagreement, but a very interesting, especially for the kind of audiences, the smart cookies that you labeled. If they are knowledgeable with arrangement and Carnatic music and the basic structure of notes, if you go listen to that song, the chord structure is slightly, it'll sound complementary. I'll give you a classic example of A.R.RAHMAN sirs. He did Margari Puve.
Yeah.
Margari Puve, Margari Puve. I forgot the lyrics. Ta-ra-ra, ta-ra, ta-ra-ra-ra. Okay. If you ask someone who has musical knowledge to notate the swaram for it, they can go one of two ways, depending on which you fix as the sa. ஏன்னா எந்த பாட்டுக்குமே வந்து the melody is determined by what you fix as the sa, which is the pitch that you sing in. The pitch determines everything. It determines the tuning for what scale you're going to play, the instruments, your keyboard, your live instruments like the rhythm, tabla, mridangam, everything. You bring in violin, you bring in flute, everything is determined by the pitch. Right? If there is no scale or no pitch, it's just noise, right? Music is just sound at a particular pitch, which is all like sounding nice and aesthetic. That's one note you miss, it's noise. That's all it is. Right? So எங்க வாத்தியார்லாம் இப்படிதான் சொல்லி வளர்த்தாங்க. They're like, you're just அப்படிதான் சொல்லுவார், like you're a bunch of noisy kids. Occasionally, if you end up singing together in one pitch, you all sound musical. So this is just like that, right? So then when we were doing Rangapura Vihara, that's what happened. We had a lot of creative discussion, like going back and forth about what will the purists think? First of all, we're already adding like trance kind, lounge kind of music to it. Other way, one level of risk, right? Second is now this chord structure is not straightforward. But eventually, like, I was only one of the singers. It was not my idea. It was not, I'm not the music producer. So I'm like, I will just perform as a singer. Like the final, I'll vouch my concern, like I'll share my concern, but then I'm not the one here to make the call. Right. So the music producer for that, he's a very good arranger, a good friend of mine. His name is Sharat. So he took the call saying, no, I'm very confident about this. This will go well. So we just sang it. It was just like a very unexpected thing. Like, hey, Vinod, we just want you to try this draft. And then suddenly the draft became like the near final. I'm like, stop. Like, let's do this. There is the other reason why I like that is the ragam in which that song is in. It's in a ragam called Brindavana Sarangi.
Right.
And it's there both in Hindustani as well as in Carnatic music. But the thing about that is sometimes in some compositions and some artists, they take some poetic license, they take some freedom to introduce a foreign note. I'll just explain that with the Tanpura. Okay. It's easier that way. Can you hear it, right?
Yes.
Sare ma pa ni sa sa ni pa ma re ni sa. So the thing about Vrindavana Sarangi is there are two versions of ni. Pa ni ma pa ni. So there are twonis. The thing is, there are some composers like Rangapura Vihara. It's composed by Muthuswami Dikshidhar, who is regarded as one of the innovators and scientific composers for Carnatic music. But in this composition, however, he uses only one of those variations. Right? So I wanted to push that a little bit. So there is a small swaram portion that I sing in the ma pa ni 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 sa ni pa ma ni pa re re sa re ma pa ni ni sa re pa ni pa re re sa ni ni sa. So on technical terms, I'm flouting the rules of Dikshithar's preferred structure or definition of the ragam, right?
Yeah.
But it was a refreshing change for a major. Again, so this now becomes a tightrope walk. It's for those who are really particular about, oh, how can you sort of bend the rules of what Dikshithar has defined? But the thing is, the definition of the ragam allows for this flexibility. Even though the composer has chosen to ignore that flexibility and make it more strict in its definition, right? So now it becomes a very technical aspect of, am I flouting the raga, which is blasphemy, because you're like, who do you think you are? You've basically redefined the structure, versus I have mildly, and I don't know if it's mildly, I have taken my liberty with going outside of the strict definition of what the composer intended to do.
Yeah.
So I've not changed the composition.
Yeah.
But I added something which is not there in the original composition, which still is within the boundary of Vrindavana Saranga, right? So we wanted to include that because both these, the variations of notes are allowed. And there are other compositions that very beautifully show the presence of this, and very strongly in Hindustani also.
True.
Right? So, but if you look at the original composition for Rangapura Vihara, you will never see the ni, that note will never come in Dikshithar's rendition. As in, if you're singing the composition properly, the way it is supposed to be sung, you can never use this note, right? So if you just take the first few lines. Rangapura Vihara Jaya Kodanda Ramavadara Raghuvira Shri Ranga Pura Vihara. You're supposed to ignore the second variation of the knee even when you do improvisations.
Wow, amazing.
So, but this is something that most of the audiences will not know, or they may not even mind it.
Yeah.
But then only like the kind of smart cookie that you mentioned in Carnatic music, they are the ones who will come and argue with you on this, saying, oh, how can you do this? It's not that they have a problem or they're finding fault with it, but it becomes a point of contention. Then it's like a very interesting sort of conversation, right? It's like, I have not changed the original composer. So technically I have not offended Dikshidhar. It's not in my capacity to touch any of his compositions. But the raga allows me to do that. So this is like, who has greater power? Sami Persa, Pusari Persa.
Nice.
So,
look, the next one is from a very good friend of mine, and also that's the best part about this journey that I'm on. It has got me connected to various great talents. Like one of them is Shruti Iyer.
Right.
So she put in a request. She asked me to get you to sing, if you can, Nila Kaigiradhu. 1-2 lines, if that's okay.
Sure. This is Rahman's song, so I want to make sure that I don't.
She said that only an hour ago. She said, get Vinod to sing this.
She always does that. பார்த்து அந்த மாதிரி என்ன சொல்றது என்ன சொல்றது தனுஷ் படத்துல ஒன்றுமே ஏத்தி விட்டு அழகு பாக்குறதுக்கே வேலையா போச்சு அந்த மாதிரிதான் அது நிலா காய்கிறது நேரம் தேய்கிறது யாரும் ரசிக்கவில்லையே இந்த கண்கள் மட்டும் உன்னை காணும் தென்றல் போகின்றது சோலை சிரிக்கின்றது யாரும் சுகிக்கவில்லையே இந்த கண்கள் மட்டும் உன்னை காணும் காற்று வீசும் வெயில் காயும் காயும் அதில் மாற்றம் ஏதும் இல்லையே ஆவானும் மண்ணும் நம்மை வாழ சொல்லும் அந்த வாழ்த்து ஓயவில்லை என்றென்றும் வானில் நிலா காய்கிறது நேரம் தேய்கிறது யாரும் ரசிக்கவில்லையே இந்த கண்கள் மட்டும் உன்னை காணும்.
This will definitely bring a big smile on her face.
This song is very close to me because Harini, when she sang it, I think she's my school senior.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Harini is from my school senior. So I went to Padma Seshadri. So people from Chennai who know that school, they usually think of us as a Periya Peter Pasangappa, you know, that's a typical, and we are like that. I'm not going to deny that. So I'm going to take some pride in that, this thing, you know. So I don't know. It's just there. We're just two studios and we're kind of a show off, and I totally get that. So I will, by all means, take that as a credit and compliment. So in school, we had this thing where every year we had this big function called anniversary, school anniversary, which is a huge cultural show. It is by school students, for the school students, and it's a very private affair between us, right? Only the parents are allowed to come.
Okay.
But if any outsider comes, they're just like mind blown. They're like, how come you guys are not studying? Like, you must have taken you like months to put this together. But we did that.
Wow.
So it was like that. So we used to have like many plays. We used to have choirs. Every year, like all original music. Some teacher will write lyrics and all like very global liberal themes they'll write. I remember singing about philosophers of the world during Renaissance period. Wow. So Tamilda, we have sung original compositions about Mozart, about Socrates. அதெல்லாம் வேற லெவல் திங்கிங். இதுக்கெல்லாம் நாங்க ஸ்டுடியோல போய் ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணுவோம். நாங்க the few Carnatic trained musicians எல்லாம் கூட்டின்னு போயிடுவாங்க. வா உனக்கு நீ மேத்ஸ் படிச்ச எல்லாம் போறோம் அப்படின்னு கூட்டின்னு போயிட்டு ஸ்டுடியோல உட்காந்து டே from morning 9 till evening 10.
Yeah.
We were like what, 5th standard, 6th standard, like that, you know.
Wow.
Amazing exposure, right? So then you're there, you're working with professional musicians. They'll bring all like the top accompanying artists, violin, mridangam, ghatam, dolak, tabla, எல்லாரும் வந்துருவாங்க. உட்காந்து they're like, இந்த பையன் பாடுவான்ப்பா, அந்த பொண்ணு பாடும்பா, இந்த டியூனை வந்து ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணுங்க அப்படிம்பாங்க. அங்க வந்து okay, அப்படியா. So my recording experience goes back to my school time, 4th and 5th standard. All thanks to my school, right? So அது ஒரு என்ன சொல்ற ஒரு, for me it's ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு கர்வம் அது.
And that was a school Sir came from too.
என்னமா?
That was a school from the Sir came from too, right?
ஆமா. அது அப்புறம் தான் தெரிய வந்ததுல. அப்புறம் வந்து they were like, we are having an alumni coming அப்படின்னாங்க. யாரு பண்ணா? A.R.RAHMAN. ஐயோ இந்தியா சொல்றேன் அப்படின்னு அந்த மாதிரி இருந்துச்சு, right? So for Nila Kaigirada, the year the film released, the next anniversary we had, Harini sang this as the opening song. That was the year I think Rahman sir was invited as chief guest.
Wow.
அப்படியே கூட்டான அப்படியே அல்ல மோதிச்சுன்னது. ஏதோ ஸ்கூல் ஃபங்க்ஷனுக்கு ரஹ்மான் சார் வராறான்னா, எந்த ஸ்கூல்லாம் கிடையாது, அவரு படிச்ச ஸ்கூல் அப்படின்னா நாங்க வெள்ளை கெத்தா பேசிக்கிட்டோம்ல. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி, ஸோ இதுக்கு தான் அந்த மாதிரி தேவையில்லாம வந்து கெத்து காமிக்கிறது, இந்த மாதிரி சண்டை எல்லாம் போட மாட்டோம், ஆனா ஃபுல் கெத்து. ஸோ அதுதான் வெளில வந்து பத்மா சேஷாத்ரி எல்லாம் பீட்டர் பசங்கப்பா அப்படிம்பாங்க. நாங்க வந்து எஸ் வி ஆர் லைக் தட். நாங்க தமிழ்லையும் கெத்து காட்டுவோம், இங்கிலீஷ்லயும் கெத்து காட்டுவோம், இங்கிலீஷ் பேசுற தமிழ் இந்த மாதிரிலாம் சொல்லி சுத்திட்டு இருப்போம், ரைட்டா? ஸோ எங்களுக்கு வந்து பர்டிகுலர்லி ஃபார் எங்க கூட படிச்ச பசங்க லைக் யூனோ பீப்புள் இன் ஹரினிஸ் பேட்ச் அண்ட் ஆல், நிலா காக்கிறது வாஸ் அ வெரி, என்ன சொல்றது, இட் ஹாஸ் அ ஸ்பெஷல் பிளேஸ். Because it's the thing that's one thing, because of Harini everybody is like, oh Padma Seshadri, oh Padma Seshadri.
Yeah.
ஸோ எங்களுக்குலாம் ஒரு ஆஹா நம்ம ஸ்கூலை பத்தி இவ்வளவு பெருமையா நம்ம ஸ்கூல்ல படிச்ச ஒரு பொண்ணு போய் பாடி, அதுவும் வந்து நம்ம ஸ்கூல் அலும்னாய் ரஹ்மான் சார் அந்த மாதிரி ஒரே இந்த பிஎஸ்பிபி கனெக்ஷன் தான், அப்படிதான் அந்த மாதிரிலாம் வந்து என்ன சொல்றது, we have that attitude of என்ன குட்டி பசங்க தானே 5th 6th ஸ்டாண்டர்ட், ஒரு shared glory, you know what I mean, like அந்த மாதிரி தான் இருந்தது. like you have a superstar amidst you, like in your school. Everybody in the school is like when they announced Sundar Pichai as the CEO of Google, right? There's this joke that says every school in Tamil Nadu started to claim he was the alumni. And the more than that, for a shared glory, you know, like about 2-3 years senior Harini Akka, like Akka தான் obviously, right? So Harini Akka போய் வந்து ரஹ்மான் சார் படத்துலலாம் பாடிட்டாங்க, பெரிய ஆள் ஆயிட்டாங்க அந்த மாதிரி. So எங்களுக்கு immediate superstar is Harini Akka, like to see her sing அந்த மாதிரி. And எங்களுக்கு வேற branch, so அவங்க கேகே நகர், நாங்க வந்து நொங்கம்பாக்கம். இந்த மாதிரி ஆனிவர்சரிக்கு ரிஹர்சலுக்காக எங்களை வந்து ஃபுல் டே கூட்டு போவாங்க, ஃபுல் டே கிளாஸ் கட்டு, ரைட்டா? எங்க டீச்சர்லாம் பார்த்தோன்னா கண்டிப்பா கூப்பிட்டு அசிங்கப்படுத்தாங்க, அது வேற விஷயம், ரைட்? ஸோ பட் தே யூஸ் டு டேக் லைக் என்டையர் ஸ்கூல் யூஸ் டு பி ஆஃப், கிளாஸ்லாம் நடக்கும், ஆனா கொஞ்சம் பாட தெரிஞ்சாலே அவ்வளவுதான் கோயர்னு சொல்லி எடுத்துன்னு வந்துருவாங்க, ரைட்டா? ஸோ நாங்கெல்லாம் வந்து உட்காந்து காம்படிஷன்லேயே வந்து பாடுறவங்களாச்சா, எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் சான்ஸே கிடையாது, நீ எல்லாம் மேட்ச் படிச்சது போறோம்னு சொல்லிட்டு கூட்டின்னு போயிடுவாங்க. So full day, like we just you go to the Kekinagar branch and rehearsals full day, right? So occasionally like this, like Harnika will come, she'll do like 1 or 2 rehearsals. Appa paatha undu. Right? So it was like wow moment, like someday we'll also sing like her, no, the mandri. Apro then we had Mahanadi Shobana, avangalum PSBB.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I think avanga munnadi padirundanga nenikken because she sang for Mahanadi.
Correct.
Right? Correct. And then a few years later was, I think, I don't remember the timeline clearly, but I think Shobana sang after before Harini, right?
I think so.
So we continuously had these sort of என்ன சொல்றது, ஒரு பூஸ்டர் இன்ஸ்பிரேஷன். அப்பப்போ இந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் தான் பெருசா ஏதாவது பண்ணிடுவாங்க, ரைட்? ஓகே, ஸ்கூல் மானத்தை காப்பாத்துறாங்க, நம்மளும் வந்து ஒன்னு ஸ்கூல்ல படிக்கும் போது இல்ல வெளில போய் நம்ம ஸ்கூல்ல பெருமையாக்கி விட்டுறணும் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி. அந்த இது கண்டிப்பா இருக்கு, ரைட்? So I would definitely say that's one thing, even though you know, like when I speak to my friends who studied in other schools, they're like, although yes, we had these opinions about PSBB in your school and all that, they also acknowledge that yes, you guys were really well in terms of academics and extracurricular. The school encouraged extracurricular. So so that's how I had the opportunity to learn piano as well. So Western classical anga dhaan. So simultaneously my Carnatic and Western classical happened at the same time.
Super.
So yeah.
Amazing.
My school is as much an integral part as A.R.RAHMAN in my childhood. So
yeah, I had like 10 requests, so I picked only 3. One of them was mine because of course I didn't want to bombard you with too many.
No, that's fine. Go for it.
There's just one more. There was this guy who sent a message saying, I really love his voice. I would really like him to sing 2 lines of your Kalai Purudil.
Oh, okay. Okay, mine. காலை பொழுது கனவுகள் கலையும் நொடியில் காத்திருந்தேன் அடி உன் இதழ்கள் சிரிப்பதை பார்க்கவே. காலை பொழுதில் கனவுகள் கலையும் நொடியில் காத்திருந்தேன் அடி உன் இதழ்கள் சிரிப்பதை பார்க்கவே. இரவெனும் வேளையில் வெட்கம் வேஷம் ஆனதே, இவைகளில் ஈரமா இடைவெளியிலும் வேண்டுமா. காலை பொழுதில்
Beautiful. Buddy, I absolutely loved it, man. This is going to be one of my favorite podcasts for sure. I'm not saying it for the sake of saying it, but I absolutely loved it. The conversations and the in-depth analysis, and I've enlightened myself with a number of things with things that you spoke. I have to go back and then do a bit of research now.
Well, I'm glad it came to that. So,
because yeah, I mean, buddy, I really hope one day Sir calls you and he fulfills your wish, man. I really hope.
I'm crossing all my fingers, so whatever that
means. I will be one of the first guys to give you a call and come when that happens.
கண்டிப்பா நானே கால் பண்ணி சொல்றேன், முதல்ல உனக்கு தான்.
So, I mean, I feel very blessed about this journey because the fact that the likes of yourself and so many others, extremely talented people out there coming on the podcast, and I just feel extremely blessed. And I feel like I was telling this to Sir the other day that, Sir, I feel like I'm on a dream ride right now. And he said, no, I think your intent is right, and that's why this is happening.
Right, right.
So that's what
Yeah,
Sir said.
absolutely. I mean, I agree 100% with him, right? Because that's one thing I've also noticed with not just his music, but also what he intends for the people around him and
Mm,
the ones who work with him, right?
mm,
Uh, is your intention is right, then that plays a major role in how things turn out, right? So that's
correct,
definitely
correct.
there. And also, you've put in the effort to make this work
Yeah.
over so many
Mm.
months and weeks of putting all of these things together and properly planning and all of that. So
And
recently in one of the interviews, huh?
single-handedly doing the whole thing.
Yeah, so that's it's no joke. Like I don't know if anybody else is doing this or of this nature. இன்னொரு இன்டர்வியூல சார் சொல்லியிருந்தார் like when somebody asked him about what would you tell to people who are waiting for opportunities.
Mm, mm,
ரொம்ப அப்படியே நெத்தியில் அடிச்ச மாதிரி ஒன்று சொன்னாரு. Like you,
mm.
it's not your job to wait for opportunities. You keep putting your music out there. You keep putting your work out there. When it needs to be picked up, it will be picked up,
So
right?
true.
So அது வந்து இது மாதிரியே சொன்னாரு. Like I think whoever asked them, they asked it from a perspective of
Mm,
நான் இந்த ஜாதி வரல, அந்த ஜாதி எனக்கு சான்ஸ் அந்த மாதிரி கேட்டேன்னா சார் செம்மையா ஒரு பதில் சொன்னார். He was like, அதெல்லாம் சரி, நீ என்ன மேன் பண்ணிருக்க, நீ என்ன வேலை பண்ணிருக்க அப்படின்னு
wow.
like அந்த மாதிரி கேட்டார். Like you just
Yeah.
keep complaining that opportunities are not there because of this problem, that problem, that problem. If you want to complain, you can complain about 100 things.
Mm, yeah.
If
Of
you
course.
think you're struggling, I
Of
will show
course.
you 10 other people who have stronger struggles.
Yeah.
Then your struggle will look like a first world problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he was like, நீ எஃபர்ட்டே போடாம, like if you're looking for opportunities, you're just being very self-entitled. So
So true. Yeah.
அதுதான், that's literally just defines the power
Mm,
behind every
mm,
independent musician who continues to make themselves vulnerable and put original work out there and constantly performing. And அதுதான், it's like, so if somebody asks me நீ என்ன பண்ணிருக்கேன்னா, I can talk today, இன்னைக்கு நான் பேசலாம், நான் இவ்வளவு work பண்ணிருக்கேன் அப்படிங்க, right? So
mm.
அதுதான், that's what keeps me going. It's like
Perfect.
when I'm like, is it time yet for sir to call? Yes, I don't know. I feel yes. But
It'll come one day.
அன்னைக்கு அவருக்கு கூப்பிட்டு, சப்போஸ் அவர் கூப்பிட்டு நீ என்னப்பா வேலை பண்ணிருக்கேன்னா வந்து I shouldn't blink. சார் இந்த வேலை பண்ணிருக்கேன் சார் அப்படின்னு சொல்றதுக்கு இருக்கணும்ல.
For sure. Just keep
அதான்
doing the work. That's it.
அதுதான். So precisely what you're doing, right? So if this has to grow bigger, like if somebody has to come and give that hand of support to make it grow bigger and reach more people, they have no business asking, hey Chandar, what have you done? I'm like, your work will just speak for itself, right? So that's one thing I totally see. That's there. People who are associated with Rahman sir, that's becoming a part of who they are also, right? They're constantly trying to make sure that their work speaks. Like they don't have to come. Just it's not
Correct.
their name that comes. It's the work that makes the name for them, right?
Sure. Sure.
So other, it's a big thing for me when I saw that interview of Rahman sir. Like, what have you done? அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்டாரு. ஆஹா, ஓகே, இவரே இந்த மாதிரி யோசிக்கிறேன்னா நம்மளுக்குலாம் எக்ஸ்கியூஸே கிடையாது. வாயை மூடிட்டு வேலையை பண்ணணும்.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
yeah,
And so, buddy, before we wrap up, I know it is your dream to work with Sir, and maybe you know what? Who knows? This might be something that he will see. He usually gets the first link before the podcast releases. So, and I cannot guarantee that he will watch it, but from what I know about him, he does watch and he watches things in a fast forward mode. And he might come to this point towards the end where, well, I mean, this is an opportunity for you to give a message for Sir, anything that you want to talk to him.
right,
This could be a medium. Who
right.
knows? I'll hope for the best.
Okay. All right. You put me in the spot right there, but here goes. A.R.RAHMAN sir, if you're watching or listening to this, I want to say namaskaram first. Um, I feel like I'm one of the Ekalavyas, and you being the Dronacharya here. I've learned everything that I've learned about music arrangement and how to bring different genres together is because of you. Um, in fact, only because of you. I think I have worked enough in my life that I'm ready to come sing for you. So
Right.
obviously you're the one who makes that call. But that's been my dream. So I don't have anything else to say. I'm not sit here and justify my dream or my work. It's a dream. You don't have to justify my dream to anyone. But I'm just going to make sure that someday I will sing for you.
For sure. I
Yeah.
am 100% sure it's going to happen, buddy.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much, man. We went for almost an hour and a half, and you gave me your precious time on a Friday
Wow.
night for this. And then I feel very honored. I feel blessed to be on this journey
Yeah.
and with the likes of yourself coming on this and talking about your passion, your music, everything that you do. I just feel amazing. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show. I don't think I've spoken so much in depth about Rahman sir's music to anyone else in my life.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, maybe if I get hold of Rahman sir, I'll probably make him sit down and bore him with all of this. I hope he doesn't hear this part. Cut it out and edit it. பாவம் இதை வச்சு ஐயோ இவன் கிட்ட வந்து அவகாசம் வேண்டாம்னு நினைச்சுக்க போறாரு பாவம் ஐயோ.
Cool.
So but yeah,
Thank you so much once again, man. I personally loved, and this is going to be one of my favorite podcasts for sure.
thank you so much. Phenomenal questions, and I had a great ball of a time discussing all of this and chatting
Thank
about